Welcome back, everyone, to another exciting episode of Indie Reads Aloud. Today, we have returning author J.A. Bullen. He's my friend Jacob. I get to call him Jacob. So he is coming back to read from another one of his really fun stories. Jacob is a really cool author from Michigan. And what's so interesting about Jacob is that he has the ability to write in multiple genres all at the same time. I kid you not, all at the same time. Jacob, welcome. I'm so glad you came back again.
Thanks. I'm happy to be back.
Oh,
It's been a lot of fun.
you've got a lot of books. I know you're going to be coming back more. So, for those of you who have not met Jacob, he was born in Mason, Michigan, and has remained a local with his wife and two children. He first became interested in writing at the age of 8, but never pursued it passionately until explaining to his daughter the importance of having dreams and pursuing them. Jacob mostly delves into epic fantasy fictions, thrillers, horrors, or science fiction. But truly, he writes everything. He's most passionate about his family and often leaves secret references to his wife and daughter in his work. And I got to tell you, you guys, he's really, really good at interweaving multiple plot lines simultaneously. So if you like challenging work that takes you in a lot of different places at the same time, got to check out Jacob's books. Tonight, Jacob is going to be reading from Intimations of Death, which is a supernatural thriller. Jacob, rather than me read the synopsis, which anybody can read, tell me a little bit about this story and a little bit about where you got the idea for it.
Yeah, of course. So I'm a huge fan of Stephen King, and I really enjoyed the concept behind the Dead Zone. But I also grew up in that age where Final Destination was still cool.
Mm-hmm.
So this story is about a Detroit police officer who's gunned down in the line of duty, comes back able to track and perceive death through its intimations. So essentially, I've created a reverse Final Destination where Olivia is able to perceive death or the spirits of death, and is attempting to keep them from claiming souls.
Very cool. That's a super succinct way of putting this. I've read this book, and that's why didn't we put that on the back cover?
Well, because the entire book's written like a journal.
It is written like that's yeah. It's a great approach and it's really an interesting story. I love Olivia because she's so multifaceted. She has so many little pieces to her personality. Did you pattern her off of somebody you know from real life, or is she 100% imagination?
Well, I mean, life imitates art, imitates life. I mean, I'm sure there's several aspects of her personality that are based off people I've met in real life. Certainly the relationship and interaction between her and her best friend Desiree is very much based upon people I know in real life.
Okay. So
yeah,
you borrow a little bit from the real and infuse it into your imagination.
Of course.
Absolutely. Yay. Super fun. I am really excited to have you read some of this. A big reason why I love doing this podcast so much is that I get to hear how the authors interpret their own work. And I just like it when people read out loud to me. So when you are ready, please take the microphone and read aloud.
Walking outside, we stepped beneath the awning, hearing the crackling of thunder. Turning our heads, we saw the approaching black clouds where there had been bright sunlight only an hour before. That feeling in my stomach is back. Only in Michigan, Des laughed. Weather calls for a 5% chance of rain sometime tomorrow, she sighed, staring at her phone. I sighed along with her, hand pressed against my stomach from inside my jacket pocket. Staring ahead, a vertically reaching stretch of darkness loomed nearer. What is this sensation? I shivered without touching the rain or the chill. Quick, Livy, before we get soaked, let's get to the car, she yelled, jogging down the street towards her car. However, I remained invisibly bound to the tall, slender-built thing across the street. The thin man, dressed like Gomez Adams with impossibly pale skin, strolled in the storm's direction. I remained motionless, paralyzed. What the hell is that? 7 ancient-looking knives pierced through the man's back, exiting through the cavity where a heart should have dwelled. Every fiber in my body quaked. My lungs screamed for me to breathe, even as I drowned in the smells of flowers and ash. The pale man stopped to stare at the storm. Livy, come on. I could hear Des call from somewhere in the back of my mind. Eyes fully dilated, my heart threatening to erupt, the man turned to face me, revealing something worse than his body, his face. Skin, paler than bone, stretched over a skull much too tightly. The flesh stretched over the entire skull. Creases formed over the concealed eyes, mouth, and nasal hollows. So cold. The vapor of my breath rose before my eyes. Though I could no longer perceive the kiss of the rain on my skin, my body felt frozen to the bone. Livy, get up. Are you all right? I felt a tug on my arm before realizing I had dropped to my knees. The pale man's jawbones shifted as his mouth formed a smile, further stretching the skin. Slowly, the flesh on its face ripped, allowing long-reaching skeletal hands to claw their way from its mouth. Clicking and clacking, as they crawled free, black specters poured out through the gaps in the thin man's face. Livy! I blinked my eyes as the rain crashed down. Blinking again, a shiver ran down my spine and the pale man was gone. I need to take my pills, I groaned, rising from the wet pavement. I have a water bottle in the car, Desiree said, holding tightly onto me, half dragging me to the car. She opened the passenger side door and helped me in before running to the driver's side. Pulling out a sleeve of the red pills, my hands trembling, I struggled to peel away the seal as Des held out a black sports bottle. Here, Libby, it's tea, she warned as I continued to panic, my head pounding from the adrenaline coursing through my veins. Throwing 2 pills into my mouth, I tipped back the bottle and gulped. Swallowing, I drew in a series of steady, deep breaths, feeling Des's hand rubbing circles on my back. A moment later, my heart resumed its normal rhythm. What happened? What did you see? Des asked. I shook my head, my thoughts too rattled. The stretched smile, the tearing of its flesh, the aspects of death clawing their way from its throat. I should be committed. Nodding, Des pulled out her keys and placed them into the ignition. Please don't go yet, I asked, placing my hand over her arm. Sure thing, Libby. Take as long as you need. The hammering of the rain outside continued, but did nothing to break the terrible silence within the car or my mind. The images continued to flash before me. My eyes opened and closed. Slowly, focus returned to my vision, and I stared at the white water bottle. The pain in my gut eased to a dull pulse. After 3 more deep breaths, I sat upright and nodded. Ugh, it's already so thick you can't see out of your mirrors, I complained, staring at the rain. It's not that bad yet. I can still see just fine, Des said, starting the car, shifted into gear, and carefully pulling out of her parking space. As she pulled out, we slowly headed for home. Sighing with relief, I fiddled with the tuner in search of a song to set my nerves at ease. Instead, a skyward form moved in opposition to the rain, like an invisible bird on the wing. Veering its course, it dove towards the open road, the rain splashing across the windshield of a white F-150, which slid sideways through the intersection. As the vehicle collided with a much smaller red Malibu, it rolled over the top of the car, crushing it. 2 more vehicles, a blue Suburban and a black Impala, tried to avoid the wreck. As the truck, still spinning out of control, landed on the hood of the Impala, the Suburban behind it smashed the smaller car from behind, flipping it upside down. Holy shit, Des yelled as I grew rigid in my seat. Ahead of us, several people screamed as they attempted to drag themselves from their ruined vehicles. Pieces scattered across the street, ranging from rear-view mirrors and shattered glass to slumped-over piles of blood-soaked fleshy mush, which had been thrown through the front window of the Suburban. Above the wreckage was a host of nearly invisible specters, buzzards after a disaster. The rain fell in broken patterns as they loomed, the only physical confirmation of their presence. Terrible, possessing tremors rattled my bones as I watched them circle. I have to go help, Desiree said, parking 1 space ahead and reaching into the back seat where she kept her emergency kit. You stay here, she ordered, grabbing her cell phone and dialing 911. She placed her hands on the door handle and sat up as someone picked up. Yes, dispatch, this is Desiree Caro. I have a bad accident at the intersection of Utica and Grosbeck. I'll provide support until a unit arrives, she said, holding the phone out, which was on speaker. Thanks, Desiree. We are sending Unit 22 your way now. Des tossed her phone in her seat as she ran out into the rain. Body still shaking, I worked to control my breathing. Move it, Lux, I told myself, trying to will myself into action. Get off your ass. The disconnected portion of my psyche pleaded to the bit, still in control of my body. It's just like that time. My mother's blank, lifeless eyes stared at me as my father tried to pull me away, screaming as he fired his gun towards the bright lights in the distance. I could not see who he fired upon. All I could see were my feet dragging behind me as I weakly jerked at my body. Get up, I demanded once more, and suddenly the sight of my shaky hands on the dashboard returned. Refocused, I exhaled once more, opened the car door, and ran into the chilly rain after my friend. Sprinting down the sidewalk towards the scene, I tried to ignore the swirling spirits as I felt my meds kicking in. The ethereal buzzards, which continued to swarm, faded in and out of sight. Ignoring the delusions, I charged ahead, already seeing lights from the first responders. Nearing the crash, which people watched and recorded, I spotted the officer on the scene. Liv, the officer yelled. You aren't supposed to be here. The young, inexperienced man with dark hair yelled over the sound of the crowd. Of all the rookies, he was the easiest to remember, coincidentally having the same last name as our captain. The color had drained from his face. Most accidents proved to be rather benign, but it was clear there would be more than one person leaving under the sheet. I'm here to help, Officer Blake. What are we looking at? I glanced back, flickering images of the phantoms loomed overhead. I've got another unit and at least a couple of buses on the way. Desiree is already over there with Garrett trying to help anyone who needs it. Stay here, keep these people back. I'm going to go help. Without a second's hesitation, I ran further into the scene, jumping over and avoiding various pieces of wreckage as I ran beside the four connected vehicles, maneuvering around the two crushed cars, their passengers inarguably mutilated. I saw Desiree and Sergeant Garrett Rolfe bent down by the truck and Impala. Damn it, Olivia, what the hell are you doing here? The heavier set, gray-haired man yelled as he helped Des pull a woman from the flipped Impala. Within a quick flicker of light, the specters appeared and vanished again. The brief glimpse I alone had been offered caused the panic sensation to settle back in. Livy, get your ass over here. I need your help, Des yelled while tending to the gushing wounds of a woman in her 30s. My little girl, Katie, please help her, the woman pleaded. I looked back towards the car, which was sufficiently crushed by the large truck on top of it. Another flicker flew skyward. The spirits continued to circle above, disappearing the moment my eyes focused on them. However, one in particular slowly descended, fading in and out of sight as it kept its face pointed towards the car. Livy, I've got her, I yelled, flinging off my jacket and wrapping it around one hand. A chill shot down my spine as the freezing rain immediately drenched my clothes. In the back seat, hanging limply from her seatbelt, was a small blonde-haired girl, hardly old enough for her booster seat. Holding up my jacket, I turned my head away. A faint outline of the specter continued to descend towards the girl. Shaking myself free of the mirage, I kicked out the driver's side window, clearing away the loose glass. I threw my jacket inside the car. Don't worry, I'm a police officer. I'm here to help. The upside-down girl did not speak a word. Eyes wide open, she stared up at the car's floor. Crawling forward, I placed myself beneath the child. A chill licked at my spine as the cramping in my gut flexed. Shifting myself in position to catch the girl, I gasped at a ghostly hand reaching down to the floor. With a startled yelp, I kicked at the floor as the elongated fingers neared the girl's still chest. I shifted my lower body into a better position. Continuing to kick blindly at the flickering image, I focused my eyes as the specter shifted in and out of focus. Finally, I felt my foot connect with something which gave way. Though the image beneath my feet had vanished, the chilling feeling remained. Blinking her eyes rapidly, the girl looked down at me. Where's my mommy? She whimpered, eyes filled with tears that sprinkled down on my face. She's outside. Here, I'll take you to her, I said, supporting the child's weight and unbuckling the clip. Then, lowering her to my chest, I slid on my back towards the broken window of the car, cradling Katie's head close. I winced in pain, accidentally bumping my head on the dome light. Opening my eyes, I saw the apparition return, slowly creeping through the solid floor paneling. Face and body from out of a ghost story, it stared directly at me and cocked its head side to side. Hastening my retreat, I felt shards of broken glass burrowing into my hands and my backside. I've got her, Olivia, Officer Garrett said, gently lifting Katie from me. How's the mother? I asked. Garrett looked back towards Des and the paramedics who were trying to assist the other survivors. She may yet make it, he said. Looking back towards the accident, I searched for any sign of the spirits, but saw none. The clouds and the rain vanished as the sun began to shine, slowly creeping from its slumber. Leaning to the side, I searched back inside the car, but no trace of the spirit remained. Good work, Olivia, Garrett said, standing and walking away. Carefully rising to my feet, I picked the shards of glass out of my hand and walked towards Des. Bathing her hands in sanitizer, she looked up at me. Can we go home now? Des asked. I would stop there.
Nice. Oh my gosh. I'd completely forgotten how intense your writing is until I heard you read it again. So much fun. Thank you so very much for that.
Thank you.
So I know we talked about this before, but in all honesty, because you've kept me very busy, I can't remember. Do you have a sequel to this book coming out?
It is planned. It is not yet written. It
Okay.
will be a Christmas-themed horror anthology. This does connect to another series, so that might be the next time readers are made aware of Olivia is
Okay.
during the crossover with Blood in the Rain, which is
Okay.
my other supernatural thriller series. But Olivia's, so this is case file 1.
Right. Yep.
So case file 2 will be a Christmas themed horror anthology. And it'll follow these different supernatural events that all center around this town that's cursed. And as each story ends and breaks, you'll be reintroduced to the present day sheriff trying to ease people's concerns as he's working with this liaison from the FBI, who will be our Olivia Lux.
Oh, what fun. Okay, that's going to be a lot of fun. I look forward to that. Tell me also about the 2 fantasies that you have coming out. One will be Assassinating the Godslayer, and the other is The King's War. Tell me just real quickly about those 2.
So Assassinating the Godslayer is my first romance novel. It is actually set to release on my wedding anniversary. I'm not a romance author. I'm not a fan of the genre typically, but I love tragic romance. I love Shakespearean romance. So Assassinating the Godslayer is something that I wrote for my wife, Christian.
Okay.
So I only found it fitting to release it on our wedding anniversary. But
that makes good sense.
And that book, in a nutshell, is an enemies to lovers trope about a young woman who is on a quest for revenge, trying to slay a dragon slayer.
Okay. That sounds like tons and tons of fun.
It was a ton of fun to write. I'm a huge fan of the Berserk series by Kentaro Miura, who unfortunately passed away during the writing of the book.
All right.
So there's an entire, it's like a 3-chapter long battle that is entirely dedicated to his work and as thanks for the inspiration he's given me in my career.
That's very cool. I hope you're mentioning him in your acknowledgments.
He has his own section in the dedications.
Perfect. So. Perfect. And then The King's War?
Yeah, the King's War is a book that's been in the making for a lot longer than it should have been. I have some very, very kind fans who I cherish that have been on me for more than a year now about getting this book out. The Legends of Valoria 4, The Three Kings War, is the 4th book, obviously, in my Legends of Valoria series, which was my debut series. It's an epic fantasy, kind of stylized after D&D, Lord of the Rings, that sort of genre-specific, those types of tropes.
Right.
But it's the entire storyline is basically told from the perspective of refugees living in a foreign kingdom that has taken them in after their entire country has been wiped clean by this darkness called the Forsaken.
Okay.
So the Three Kings War not only finalizes what was conceived in the third book, which marked the closing of a trilogy. It introduces where things are going next.
Very fun. And then one last thing I have to ask, because I'm so attached to the characters in this book, Unbound. Do you have more coming with those characters? I'm seriously attached to those characters. They were the first people I ever met through your imagination, and I've just fallen in love with them. So I'm really curious to learn if you have more coming.
Unbound has been my favorite project to work on, that entire series. I'm 187 pages into book 3, which is titled Avenger.
Very fun. Okay, good. I get another one. Yay.
It's where book 2, Betrayer, leaves off. There's obviously several storylines where the main voice in that storyline is suffering from the bite of a betrayal, hence the title of the second book.
Yes.
Avenger marks a closing again. I like to work in threes for whatever reason. I don't know. My brain.
A lot of people do. It's a common thing.
So Avenger marks the closing of this Viking civil war that is introduced in the first book.
Fun.
All of these different voices and storylines that have come apart, now they're finding their ways back together as they resolve this bloody war that has incapacitated all of the Viking people.
Amazing. Oh my gosh. Okay, so if anybody needs something to fill their downtime with, just look for Jacob Bullen. He has like 6 different book series going on right now, and he's constantly adding more. So if you need reading material, Jacob is a sure bet. Thank you, Jacob, for coming tonight and reading to me again. I really enjoy having you on the program, and I look forward to you coming back.
Thank you so much. Maybe next time I'll read from Unbound or Betrayer.
Yeah. Could you do that? That would be fun.
Good.
Okay. Have a nice night.
Thank you so much. You do the same.